All right, you guys, welcome back to a new episode. Today, it's finally the end of the week. It's Friday, and the main thing that I want to get into is this whole drama with the Indian Prime Minister being here in Australia. But look, guys, when I was looking into this and what happened and the event taking place, things like that, I just found that there are so many underlying topics and issues that are causing this event to be much more of a topic, and that includes, in my humble political opinion, the political leaders' blatant dismissal of common sense, which then leads into actions within culture and immigration, but also, look, the stemming issues that are causing Australia, our country, to be so easily disrespected. So let's get into it, guys. Now, we had a few days ago, before the Indian PM came out, Jacinta Allen did an interesting video. So let's take a look.
If the Prime Minister of India chooses to visit Victoria and Melbourne, what he would see is Melbourne and Victoria is home to the largest Indian diaspora in the country. And we are so proud of that. I am so proud to be the Premier of a state that so many families from India choose Victoria as the place to live. And they're choosing us because they see it as a great place to send their kids to school, great accessible healthcare. The Indian community, they work hard in businesses and make an incredible contribution to local communities. And I'd be really proud to show that off to Prime Minister Modi about the contribution of Indian Victorians to the great state of Victoria, because they're such a big and important and vibrant part of this state.
I mean, it's kind of expected. It's Labor. To me, they're all very excited for this visit. But last night, it was the big shindig that happened at Marvel Stadium. Apparently, there was around like 40,000 supporters in the venue and people out the front waving the Indian flag. There was also, I saw some humanitarian protesters, obviously opposing the visit, and also a far-right protest that occurred. But first of all, guys, just cutting through all of this, okay, we're uncensored, unscripted, and the first thought that comes to mind around all of this is that it's all a big distraction. Okay, we're all up in arms, and to me, this is what politics has become. Both sides trying to expose the other side's most extreme voices so they can fuel more division. And that division becomes a distraction from the actual conversations that we should be having about the real issues that our country is facing. And look, Melbourne was probably the worst place to have done this right now. Look, I don't live in Victoria, but just of an outsider looking in sort of thing, the place has become a fucking shithole. They have so much shit going on at the moment, and certainly did not need this huge event on top of it. So look, straight off the bat, that's my first thought on all of this. And also, just adding to this further, our Australian culture, really our country, is not respected because of the systemic attitudes and agendas that taught us to be ashamed overall of being Australian. To me, that's why people think they can just come here and try to change Australia's national identity and try to make it their own. Or even that it's really seeming like at the moment that it's a bit of a free-for-all and they can just walk all over us. So I want to get into the true cause of this disruption, and I think it's that. Okay, we're always taught to be ashamed of our nation, to feel bad of what happened, in the 18th century. And guys, just remember, this is me just talking off the top of my head, so fact check me on some things, but let's get into it. Now, what we're always taught in school, in my opinion, based on just my experience, I think we're always taught about the horrors that occurred, which absolutely should be taught about and, taught, because that is history. That is what happens. However, we weren't so much taught about how the English actually physically built Australia and took a barren land and made it into a functioning society. That side of things wasn't so much emphasized. With the other side also being left out is that we weren't taught that this, to be honest, is a normal thing that countries do. Okay, countries go to war. The lesser power gets defeated by the greater power. Okay, Australia's not exempt of that global event taking place. All right, it happens a lot of the times. It's happening to this day. But we weren't really taught that reality. Instead, all that I can really remember is being taught about the stolen generation, which obviously is terrible and we should learn about that because, that did happen. But we didn't really learn about anything else that happened because obviously some good must have occurred because we live in a civilized country today. And also, just adding to this further, we weren't taught about, I don't know, New Zealand and them having potentially the possibility to invade Australia before the English ever could. Or how about we weren't taught about the history of the Chatham Islands and the Moriori people? So in my opinion, we were only taught one aspect of the story. And to this day, every Australia Day, every Sorry Day, every Welcome to Country, that's literally only done at televised events anyway, so it's just virtue signaling all around. But we're basically told overall that we shouldn't be proud to be Australian, or we shouldn't be proud to be from English heritage. And that's fucks. Okay, if the people of your country don't feel like they can wave their flag and be patriotic without being labeled just some nonsensical term, then that's disgraceful. Like, that is disgraceful. And how do you expect a country to be operating successfully when we don't have our fundamental identity and culture recognized or respected? How do you expect your country to be operating when the overall community is taught to be ashamed of who built Australia? And then you see people, and I mean, it's not surprising to see this happen. You see people rocking the Australian flag with the Israeli flag, or the Indian flag as like little badges. Or you see the youth of Australia being taught that they can redesign our flag without the Union Jack. And in some cases, you see burning of the Australian flag, which is just disgusting. And I mean, guys, if you couldn't tell, I am proud to be Australian, and I absolutely despise seeing our flag being disrespected because it's not just, an artwork, it's what represents us. How many men and women died defending that flag? Defending our freedoms, defending our democracy, defending our Australian values, defending our Australian way of life. And then people are being taught that they can just simply redesign it? That is the biggest slap in the face. And in my opinion, it's all due to generations of Australians being taught that they should be ashamed of our country. God, it really gets me worked up. It's just so annoying. Like, we were taught this for so long. And now I think it's just the main systemic issues of why all of these events are just so much larger, because our underlying culture and, history is not represented or respected. History is just not one event that took place. It's every single day in the past. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. But now, guys, I just want to get on to mass immigration. Okay, because obviously, the majority of people aren't upset that the Prime Minister of India's come to Australia. Okay, a lot of Prime Ministers of countries come to Australia and vice versa. Albo goes to other countries. Okay, that's not the problem, except maybe for the humanitarian people. But overall, I don't think that's a problem. However, the problem is that it has to do with mass immigration, which rightfully so, because it does. Now, to me, the Australian leaders aren't really listening to the people and failing to establish sovereignty, regulation, and operational borders. And to me, the fundamental thing that needs to be established in order to regulate migration is borders. Now, I haven't really touched on this topic before, so I'm really keen to really get into it. But I don't want to get caught up in all of these distraction topics. I think an analogy is perfect for this, and it's just so simple when it comes to how a country operates. And this reminds me of the video that Albo did, but it's certainly not going to be this analogy. Take a look.
If I come into your home, I'll knock on the door and I'll say, "It's okay if I come in?" You go, "Yeah, welcome."
What the fuck? I'm not welcoming any random into my house. What planet is he living on? But back to the actual good analogy. Okay, let's just say that the majority of people have fences around their houses. Okay, if not all people, all right? But what's that to do? That's to keep people who are not welcomed into your home out of your home. Okay, and if someone crosses that fence into your backyard and, I don't know, attempts to open your door, what do? You call the cops and say there's a bloody intruder in my house. Okay, and you as the owner of the house, along with your family, if you operate your family as a democracy, I suppose, decide who comes into your house and who does not, based on what you believe. All right, you decide if visitors can wear their shoes in your household or if they have to take their shoes off. You decide the rules, you decide the regulations, because you own it and it is your home. That's the exact same story for a country, okay? But in my opinion, what it seems like right now is that the head of the household isn't really listening to the other family members. And another argument you can get into is the whole thing of, how borders are a social construct and are manufactured. Then you get into globalism, which, don't get me started on that, get really worked up. But look, without borders, you don't have a country. It's simple. Our government should always serve its citizens first and listen to its citizens first and determine actions based on what the majority of citizens are wanting. That's what a democracy is. Therefore, citizens make up the regulations and restrictions of borders to reflect, the country and those migrating people and how they can enter. That's what a sovereign country is. Therefore, if you do not have regulated borders and continue to say we can import hundreds of thousands of people into a population of around 28 million people, it leads to, like many people say, if you import the third world, you'll become the third world. And just another, which is so true right now. And because obviously infrastructure and social amenities cannot keep up with that either. There are so many things around it. And also culturally, just it's not compatible. And also, guys, before we wrap this episode up, I was thinking about it this week because I heard a couple of times, and lefties always throw this to someone on the right because they think it's a got you moment. But it's just factually incorrect. And I'm sick of hearing it. And it's the statement of everyone's an immigrant in Australia. That is factually wrong. There is a difference between immigration and migrants to settlers. Look back in history. What did the Brits come here and do? They came to a new region with the intention of living there. Also, it's usually a barren land that a settler comes to and establishes, say, a colony and establishes a new community and builds it up. That's what a settler is. Immigration means people moving to a destination country, a country that's already built up, and a country that already has infrastructure. So that's the difference between immigrants and settlers. So no, the factual statement is that, okay, the origins of the English coming here is that they came here as settlers. All right, so let's stop with that because it's factually incorrect. Let's stop with that everyone's an immigrant in Australia. No, also, it's just fucking rude, okay? Because some of our families have been here for over 200 years, okay? It's rude and it's factually incorrect. So guys, also, just wrapping it up again, just looking at our country, and I'm just wondering, why did it become so controversial to be patriotic? To want safety, to want a united culture, to want affordability, to want real, reliable energy. When did all of that become so controversial? Because that's just a basic fundamental thing and things that a country should uphold. That is nothing, absolutely nothing to do with whether you're on the left or the right. That's the baseline of a functioning country. I mean, what is it? It's energy, it's housing, it's culture. That's baseline. That's nothing to do with left and right. And once you decide on whether you agree with those baseline things or not, then pick your political party you're going to vote for, because from what I can see, it's definitely not Labor. I don't think Labor's going to deliver on that. And also, seriously, every topic that I just listed has become so controversial. It's ridiculous. So look at what's happening throughout all of these Western countries. We're becoming a third world country right in front of our eyes. And when maybe people are denying that, I feel like you just have to ask them. Like, we've had mass immigration really since Albanese was elected, or at least since then. We've had net zero at play for so long now. How are your living standards? And under a left-wing government, how have your living standards decreased or improved? I mean, that's the question you just got to ask people when they say, oh, we're not. Okay. Well, how are you living right now? We're in a housing crisis. We're in an energy crisis. we're in a culture crisis. Okay, the fundamental aspects of our country are all at strain, all at once. So look, guys, let me know your thoughts about everything that we've covered in this episode. Let me know in the comment section down below all of your thoughts on that. Thanks for watching, guys, and let me know all your thoughts and perspectives, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Thanks, guys.